Alright, so I'm out here camping and I decided it would be a good time to make a video on why FJ prices are getting ridiculous. And the answer isn't what you think. It's not just inflation. Yeah, it's a part of it, but there's a lot more to it than that. And I wanted to dive into why I think FJ prices are ridiculous. And before I go too far in this video, I want to tell you guys how much this thing was bought for. So this thing was bought in July of 2021 for $13,000. And you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, that's so cheap. But actually it was totaled in the front, so there was thousands more that went into it in just parts for fixing it because the whole front end was just smashed. And if you haven't seen that video, go check out this video here where I talk about what is done to this thing. And also why I think FJ Cruisers suck, which they don't, but watch the video and you'll know what I mean. But ever since this thing was fixed up, people love this thing. And it's not even done. There's a lot more that needs done to it. But just from what's done right now, people like come up all the time and they love it because it's an interesting vehicle, it really is. But then there's also like the opposite spectrum where a lot of people hate FJ Cruisers and they have good reasons for it. Like, I mean, they're not very practical vehicles. Like, it's better than a car, but it's kind of worse than an SUV. But it's just unique, but I'll kind of get into that later. And for anybody who loves FJs, good luck finding one for a good price. I'm gonna put up some examples here of some in my area, and you're easily looking at anywhere from 20K to, I've even seen some for 40K that are really nice shape, low mileage FJs. And people will pay that ridiculous amount of money. But because of the hate towards FJ Cruisers, it actually has created like a cult following, and the people who love them are like diehards for FJ Cruisers. I've said stuff and people get all up in arms about, oh, you can't say that about FJ Cruisers because you probably hate them. And no, I don't hate them. I think there's some things that are just weird with them. But I'm actually part of that cult following. I love FJ Cruisers and I'll follow like any page that has an FJ Cruiser on it that looks cool because I just think they're cool vehicles and they're just really neat. And that's actually reason number one for the price hike is the cult following. The cult following has created people who will pay ridiculous amounts of money for these things. And even as the price continues to go up, they're gonna continue paying the high premiums for this thing. And people will continue to pay ridiculous amounts of money because they're unique. And that's actually reason number two. They're very unique. You cannot find any other vehicle like it on the road. Personally, I do think they are a little bit ugly stock, but that can be changed for relatively little money, especially in the front end with bumpers and lights and stuff. It's kind of ugly, but it can be fixed. But there's nothing else on the road that looks this rugged and this small. Like, it's a small truck, but it looks very rugged, and I love how it looks, especially how the fenders come out. It just looks really clean. And even stock, they're very capable vehicles with all the features they have. And that kind of leads us to reason number three. Now, in my opinion, overlanding has exploded in the past few years, especially with YouTube and Instagram and just all the social media outlets that there's influencers on who promote overlanding and stuff like that. But this thing is actually set up well for overlanding in general. FJ Cruisers are set up well. And the main thing is it's actually comparable to Jeeps. Now there's Jeeps that are bigger than this, but there's also Jeeps that are smaller than this. So it's kind of perfect. It is kind of a different alternative to Jeeps because, to be honest, I'm not a big Wrangler guy. I think I see them everywhere. And that's kind of the reason I love FJ Cruisers, because it's kind of like a Jeep, but it's not like the typical Wranglers you see on the road today. And it also has that short / mid-length wheelbase, which makes it really nice for off-roading because it's not like crazy short, but it's also not like a truck where it's super long. So it's really nice. And this thing is also great for like solo or duo overlanding or just camping in general. Yeah, there's not a ton of space, but you can definitely fit 2 people in here with like tons of winter gear and stuff. And I know for the New Hampshire trip that I went on a few weeks back, there was 2 of us in there and we had all of our winter gear in there. So there was a lot of stuff in there, but we made it work and it wasn't too bad. And the fourth reason why the price has gone up is they're reliable. And that kind of has to tie in with the overlanding thing, which you need a reliable vehicle for that. But just from everybody I've talked to, and personally, I met up with people who've had FJs with like 400,000 miles on them. And it's just crazy. Like, they don't have issues. You just do the basic maintenance and you're fine. Now the one behind me has some other issues, but that's because of the previous accident that we're still trying to figure out. There's oil leaks and stuff, but you shouldn't expect that with a typical FJ, just because of everybody I've talked to who've just done basic maintenance, they're doing fine and they're very reliable vehicles. And the fifth reason, which is the most obvious one, which you've seen everywhere, is inflation. Prices are going up like crazy. Our government is printing ridiculous amounts of money, and it's a little scary. But I know that doesn't just impact FJ Cruisers, that's literally every other car on the market, and food and literally everything is impacted by inflation. But I do think the FJ was impacted a little bit more, only because of the reasons I listed above. And also something else interesting is there's a lot of vehicle manufacturing plants like with Ford or GM that are actually shutting down factories. And that has created less supply in the market. So in general, vehicles are being hit hard because there's just less supply and more people need vehicles. And also on top of that, people are not selling their FJs right now. You go in Facebook Marketplace, you go in Craigslist, you go in whatever, and it's really hard to find an FJ in your area. And that's because people are just not selling them. And that's also because there wasn't many FJs made. As you can see here, this is how many were made. Currently, I don't have service, so I can't look it up, but I'll put in the video, this is how many were made. And then you can compare that to, like, let's say a Toyota Camry and how many of those were made in those years. And in closing, price is subjective. There's people who will not buy these things for even 15 grand, but there's people who are willing to buy them for 40 grand. So it's honestly the value for you. What do you see in it that you want? And if you don't want it, what's the bare max that you would pay? And personally, I do not see these things coming down anytime soon. I think they're only going to continue to go up, especially with inflation. And also, since there's nothing like it on the market and there's less and less of them each year, I think that will also have an impact where people will be buying these things to be collector's items, because honestly, I could see this vehicle being a collector's item in the future. It's hard to really see many vehicles as collector's items, but I think this could be one of them. And last thing, I wanted to give credit to a channel called TDXJ, or Turbo Diesel XJ, and he basically makes videos about his XJ, which is a really clean looking XJ. You've probably even seen it before on Instagram, but go check that out. He made a video about how those prices are insane. And I thought it was a really cool idea and how it was actually very applicable to FJs as well, because they're kind of going through the same thing. But anyways, thank you for sticking around and watching the video. Do what you need to do down below and write some comments of what you learned from this video or something you disagree with. And also if you have anything you want to see with the FJ or with the Scout or with the Baja, you know, let me know and I can make that happen for you. Anyways, catch you in the next one.